Thank you very much. Hello everybody, my name is Michael. I'm from Liquidity. We just launched our version 2 borrowing protocol on Ethereum, which allows you to borrow against your ETH and which issues a bold stablecoin. So my background is in DeFi, but today I want to talk about yield. Everybody wants yield on its assets. And the easy part is to compare the yield. You know, it's just numbers, it's higher, it's lower. The hard part is the risk. What risk does this yield has? And today I want to share my learnings on the quest to find the safest rate in DeFi. So I don't have financial background, so I'm still on my quest, happy to get your feedback and learn more. But that's why it's the title, what are alternatives to US Treasuries in DeFi? And why US Treasuries from US government? Because they are the risk-free rate. And why are they called the risk-free rate? Because we have the Fed, so you give your dollars, you give up the control, you give it to the government, and in return you get a reward. And why is it so safe? Because everybody says the US government can't go bankrupt. They have Trump, yeah, they have tanks, so what possibly could go wrong? Huh? So this is kind of the safe rate, the rate you should get if there is no risk. And what this means is, let us introduce some risks. What would be nice risks in the TradFi world? Let's give your dollars to a bank. What a good idea. What changes? Banks can go bankrupt, as you have seen. And why can they go bankrupt? Because there is a black box and you have no idea, your dollar isn't sitting here, your dollar is doing funny stuff here. And you have no idea what kind of credit risk is involved. So with banks, we already see risk is greater and you get a lower rate. So how do you compare that? So I came up a bit with this mental model, how I could compare the different risks above and what do I get? It's a risk-reward thing. And what you see, and I quickly go through that because we'll use it later on, is the main thing is the counterparty. Who are you giving up the control of your dollars? Control also means, do you know kind of how it's used? That's more a bit the credit risk, so of your dollars. That's just how well is this party managed. Flexibility is also risk. How quickly can I get it out? You're giving up some control. That's why I have it as a risk. Transparency, what is happening there? And you don't see it. Control and transparency are gray because with the US Treasury, you don't know, but actually you don't care because it just can't go bankrupt. So you don't care what they do with the dollars, if they buy planes or build bridges, and transparency doesn't matter either. And then the question is, what do you get? Interest, how predictable is that? You know, do I know what I will get in the future and in which currency? How volatile is that? And what you see, I mean, obviously, the bank is a worse choice. Why? Counterparty is worse, credit risk is higher, you have no idea what happens, and here it matters, and the interest is really low. So I don't know who has money in a bank, but obviously kind of a rational user shouldn't put money in a bank. So ask yourself, why do you have money in a bank? It's safe. No, it isn't. That's safe. That's concerned the safe rate. You know, and that's, for me, it was totally mind-blowing because I'm not from finance. We have money in our bank because we want to do payments. That's a nice trick that they play. How can you do payments if you don't have money in the bank? And why is it for free? Because they give you a really low interest. So that's just a side mark on my quest. So let's move on to DeFi treasuries. What would be now the equivalent of something safe in DeFi? So where do we get the best risk-adjusted yield? Yeah, my search for DeFi's benchmark rate. So same situation. We need something that is a good counterparty, can go bankrupt, and gives a decent rate. And looking at that, what should we consider? So where do we find in DeFi something? And I will ask you where you would find that. So please keep that in mind. Where you still can keep your custody over your asset. How cool is that? That's not possible in TradFi. You can get yield and you have still control over your assets. So a low credit risk. where can you get it out at any time? Sometimes it's locked, sometimes it can be funds aren't there, so it takes longer, is an additional risk for your yield. An example is lending. In Aave, it can be if the pool is really utilized, you can't get it out immediately, maybe later, but it's a risk. Transparency, data on-chain, verifiable. I think in DeFi usually that works well. Counterparty is an interesting one. So we said we don't want to have a counterparty risk, so there is not a company, there is not a management, so that's great because we know if people have power, if people see money, they make funny decisions. So I think smart contracts are great. That should be more or less green because no counterparty. It should be green if there is really no counterparty, minimal governance, minimal collateral risk. So for example, in a lending protocol, what kind of assets are onboarded with which parameters, minimal oracle risk, but what we have is smart contract risk. I mean, yeah, that's obvious. That's the big risk that you need to take. And then the question is, how big is the yield? How high is the yield? How predictable? Can be very volatile in lending markets, in a Uniswap pool based on usage. And in which currency do I get it? Do I get a funny token that maybe in 3 months when it unlocks it has no value? Or do I get today now hard dollars? Now the stage is yours. Can I hear some benchmark rates in DeFi? Where do you get your benchmark rate? Kind of a good rate with the lowest risk.
6.4% interest on USDC on Aave at the moment.
Okay, yeah.
5% on franking coin.
Okay.
Savings account.
Yeah.
Maker.
Sorry?
Maker.
Maker, yeah. Good. Yeah, I think these are all pretty good ones. They're a bit different. You know what I learned, and now, okay, that's a bit of shilling how we'll see, that our own product, by surprise, is also doing very well. You know, but in the league of Maker and other ones. No, but really, honestly, I was surprised and say, oh, others have so much risk, and I can explain it to you. And of course, it's 1 week old. It doesn't have the linear effect like an Aave, you know. But just kind of now from this framework, looking at the risks, let's quickly look at that. And let's quickly check the time. Good. So now I go through all the 7 things and go through it for Maker, for Aave, and what did we have? Frankencoin, great. And how do we score? First, risk control. Do you keep custody over the assets? So aren't they lent out? And there we have Aave. They are lending out some of the assets because they couldn't be there. Something could happen. So not at any time you can take it. Maybe the risk isn't so severe, but you should be aware of it. And that's something in V2, your stablecoin is always there. You get it when you want. So I think that's something really nice. You earn something and you still have the asset. Flexibility, that's what I meant. Can you redeem it at any time? Are you free? So do you have control? Smart contracts, how immutable are they? How much governance? How quickly can they act? We've seen that in Maker. Rates can change quickly. Maybe it's not so dramatic, but something just to keep in mind. Parameter can be set wrong, like with Gauntlet. Also something to keep in mind with our product V2. It's also a bet because it's immutable, but especially institutions really like that they know it won't change. They don't need to do an ongoing due diligence, monitoring, governance, something can go wrong. So I'd say as a counterparty, you've only the smart contracts, you have an oracle, that's a risk. Smart contracts are not really old and can always have bugs, but otherwise I would say it checks the boxes. And the other interesting thing on the rewards where you need to distinguish is the currency. Yes, all stable coins, Frankencoin and so on, so that's great. Is it verifiable? Yeah, that's cool too. Is it predictable? Aave, not so much. It's fluctuating, but usually stable. Maker, it's governance. With us, it's a market rate that adopts the average one, so I think that's a really nice property. If you're in there, you can expect that the rate will adjust to the market without doing anything, without watching governance, without having crazy spikes. So it's like that's why I think it's like a DeFi treasury. And you should get a good rate with us because we are one of the first protocols that passes 100% of the revenues from the borrowers to the other side. You need to study all these protocols, the other ones, where the revenues go to the DAO treasury or they go somewhere else, and really hard to follow. And that's why I think we created one of the most efficient systems, because we funnel it through, we make low spreads between borrowers and what the others get. Okay, I'm getting over time and going quickly. That's the situation today. That's the borrowing rates right now on V2. Very competitive. The yields are high because it's a bit early, but you see the spread that will come very much together, and then you get very competitive rate. But it's not the rate. I explained you also the risk behind it, and I think that's why I think, yeah, our stablecoin is bold. I think it's a bold design, and in my opinion, it's like a bit a DeFi treasury, and happy to be challenged, you know, on that. But that was a bit my conclusion looking into that. Yeah, and I think with that, that's from my side, that's my Telegram. Yeah, please, if I oversaw something, if you have feedback, always open and eager to learn.
Michael, thank you very much. We actually can continue this conversation in about 5 minutes on the panel. And let's use that time also if anyone from the audience has questions. So we'll be setting the stage, but is there anyone who would like to ask any question?
Liquidity is an immutable protocol, so you know it just runs out there, so you don't have an operations. We have how do you call it? We have a token from V1 that participates in the revenue, and you can steer. So I have to go into detail. 75 go to stablecoin holders, 25 to liquidity pools. So the revenue goes really to the users. And where we benefit is from the token that benefits from the TVL. And if the protocol is big enough, you can steer some of the revenues in different ways back.
So there is a fee switch that's not being switched on?
A potential.
Right.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Just one more. If it's like always redeemable, then why should for the borrowers not always borrow, right? If you're locking up the borrowers and it's always redeemable on the lender side, then that's not a working model, because that's what banks do. Banks, you're shorting long term with, you're going long with short term. You didn't remove the risk, right?
I'm not sure. No,
Let's take an
it
example.
doesn't work like a bank.
I know, but let's take an
100%.
example. I put in $100. I can take it out whenever I want, but somebody else borrowed the $100 and he hasn't repaid it. What do I do?
You redeem these are over collateralized loans, so
Right.
you have a guaranteed claim on their collateral of the borrowers.
We can get into it later, but
Yeah.
like